Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is certainly going to be a dynamic and thought-provoking discussion. Our panel today focuses on one of the most powerful and disruptive forces shaping the global economy today, artificial intelligence. From ChatGPT to predictive healthcare, from algorithmic insurance pricing to personalized media content, AI is transforming not just individual sectors, but the very foundation of how companies disrupt and innovate. And yet, innovation does not happen in a vacuum. It's deeply shaped by global geopolitics, regulation, public trust, and corporate culture. This panel is about exploring all those layers, and most importantly, what businesses must do to stay ahead. We'll begin with the macro view, how global forces are shaping the AI landscape, then dive into real-world strategies from media, pharma, insurance, and the finance industries. Throughout, we'll be asking, what does it take to innovate sustainably in the world of AI? Before we start our discussion, ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce our esteemed panelists. Dr. Phil Budden, Senior Lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management, specializing in innovative ecosystems and corporate innovation strategies. Mr. Adam Sawicki, Group Senior Vice President of Digital at TVN Warner Bros. Discovery, leading digital transformation and AI integration in the media and entertainment space. Mr. Jan Zimowicz, member of the board of PZU SA, Poland's largest insurance company, focusing on implementing AI to enhance insurance services and operations. And finally, Mr. Markus Sieger, CEO of Polpharma, Poland's largest pharmaceutical company, overseeing AI-driven intervention in drug development and healthcare solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get going. I'd like to start with Dr. Phil Budden, an expert in geopolitics of dual tech and AI. So, Phil, how is AI becoming a new arena for geopolitical competition, and where does Europe stand relative to the US, China, and India?
Great questions. Thank you, Dominic. And as a MIT faculty, I'm always so proud of our MIT students, particularly those who have their mother in the audience. So we'll make sure we do well, Dominic. I'm faculty at MIT and I study innovation in the world, and I think it's really helpful that we're having a session on corporate innovation. There's a lot of talk about startups being entrepreneurial, founders out there, venture capital funders, but what we realize is it's not only about the young people and the startups, it's also about the experienced executives and taking forward innovation in the corporate setting. And I've got to meet these three corporate leaders, so I think you're in for a treat of a panel as they provide leadership for innovation. And AI is ubiquitous. Some people discovered it in about early 2023. Some people discovered it in late 2022 when the ChatGPT toy came out. Others had been studying it since the term was first coined in 1956 by an MIT professor. So when we talk about AI, it's important to talk about what we actually mean by AI. Is it this generative AI, which can do some amazing PowerPoint slides, but can also, as we've discovered from our MIT students, do their homework for them? Is it predictive AI? Is it wargaming AI? Is it AI to support autonomous drones? So I really look forward to hearing from these corporate leaders how they think about it. But Dominic invited me to say something about geopolitics, and I'm a diplomat originally. I am sufficiently old that I was a diplomat at the end of the Cold War, or rather the last Cold War, and it is wonderful to now be back in Poland. I spent some time in the early 1990s here, working to make sure that Poland found itself in the great Western institutions of the European Union and the European pillar of NATO. And as we seem to be heading into darker geopolitical times, as people around here know better than many of us, I think it's really important that we are here to see how Warsaw has changed, how Poland has changed. One of the things that people who come to conferences need to think about is not only about the technology, and the various flavors of artificial intelligence are really important, but to understand that in a period of geopolitical unrest like this, the creation of a new technology like AI can be used for good. It can be used for corporate benefit, and we'll hear from these three corporate leaders how people are using it. But I know from my government service that on the other side of the equation, others has access to AI. Countries east of here have access to AI, both at the state level and at the non-state criminal enterprise actors as well. And so one of the challenges as we think about AI is not just to dream about how we can use it to help us with media, biopharma, and insurance, but also to think about how do the challenges get exponentially increased. How can AI be used by baddies for fraud, disruption, and various other challenges. So with that, let me conclude my opening remarks, not to be a downer, but I see myself as a diplomatic realist, that we should talk about AI, understand that it's not just for startups and college students, that we need serious corporate leaders to take this innovation seriously as well, and to realize that AI is a double-edged sword. We try to use it for good, but others will use it as a challenge to our societies and also our business models. So, Dominic, back to you.
Thank you very much, Phil. I mean, you kindly mentioned our three esteemed colleagues here from the corporate world. What role do you think corporations can play in helping the EU stay competitive in this time of sort of perceived over-regulation and so on, especially in dual use or deep tech AI?
That's a really good question. It's companies, it's corporate innovators that make economies competitive or not competitive. Governments have a role to play. They can actually change the regulations to encourage corporate innovation, or they can make it harder for startup entrepreneurs. But in the balance between the state and the market, it is really the market actors that decide whether an economy is vibrant or not. I'm a British European, but I find myself in America. Our American friends have a balance for the current administration, had a balance between the state and the market that really empowered the market. There is a reason that for the last 25 years, the American economy has been doing so well. It has been so much easier to be an entrepreneur there. And I see many Europeans deciding to come to America. Unfortunately, the European Union took a different decision and decided to be a regulatory superpower. If your superpower is regulating, you regulate. And the challenge, if you over-regulate, is you sometimes make it hard for the entrepreneurs and the leaders in the private market to actually be competitive. So I think this period of geopolitical challenge reminds us that Europe can chart its own path. It doesn't have to follow the American model. It doesn't have to follow countries to the east of us with their models. But as Europeans, we need to decide what is the right balance so that we unleash these corporate leaders to be innovative, to take forwards AI. But as Bogi was saying today, we don't have to follow the Elon Musk model of AI. We can have our own approaches of responsible use of AI, sector by sector, company by company.
So that's how you think that so how do you think that that the EU might act in order to sort of balance this innovation and public interest that you're talking about? What sort of active action could we imagine the EU taking? Since I think most entrepreneurs here will be functioning within this space, you know, can entrepreneurs work with the EU in order to try and smooth that process?
It's a great question. For those who heard Professor Fiona Murray's keynote at the beginning of the day, she had a 5-stakeholder model for the innovation ecosystem. And we put the entrepreneur at the top of the table. We need to know what the corporate innovator, the startup entrepreneur needs and wants. And government has a seat at that table. The government's created the European Union, so they include them in the government stakeholder. It's really important for government not to just regulate by talking to the existing companies, but also to regulate in ways that are respectful of what the entrepreneurs of today need, what the innovative leaders of today need, but also talk to the universities for the spin-outs and deep tech. So I think there's a real opportunity with a new commission bedding down in Brussels to have a much more open dialogue and to hear what businesses need to remain competitive in Europe and especially facing the challenges of AI.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Philip, for providing us a sort of global perspective to launch us into the conversation with our corporate colleagues. Markus, I'd like to focus a little bit on your point of view of the pharma industry. We had a very interesting conversation backstage about how AI is helping Polpharma predict and prepare for sort of seasonal flu outbreaks and other epidemics. Could you tell us a little bit about that and what the future looks like in that direction?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, obviously, we try, you know, with our mission to supply as a generics company affordable medicine to as many people as possible, to as many patients as possible. We have a very simple target, right? We need to be able to supply. And this basically in our business, because we really serve almost every therapeutic area with the exception of oncology. So we have a very large cold and flu portfolio. And now, obviously, we're tracking constantly our whole territory, especially Poland with its voivodeship and so forth, to see where we see developments in terms of flu outbreaks, influenza outbreaks. Obviously, also when you have allergies, same thing then in summer, and this basically gives us then, and we have historic data which tells us really how this will or can develop, and based on this we have predictive analysis, which gives us also an input on where the supply has to be, right? Obviously, we have buffer stocks, we have stocks at distributors, pharmacies, but then when you see it coming, you can actually, and that's a little bit simple now to say, kick on the machine and start the supply again to produce. Because we have a very strong and very close to the market industrial network. In Poland, we have alone 5 factories which can produce, especially those medicines for the market on time. So I think this is what we're doing today, and I think we get smarter with it, our models get better, and obviously this we can extend also into other markets, being it then ophthalmology, based also on allergies and outbreaks and so forth. So I think this is something we try more and more to understand. Obviously, we also do predictive pricing. That's more than on the optimization of our profits. Obviously, that's very interesting, especially on the OTC side, to understand what's really the optimal pricing, what the patient is willing to pay compared to the competition and so forth. So it's an extremely interesting area also to explore further. And on the other side, everything which is in supply chain is heavily impacted by this, to optimize your industrial network, to optimize your working capital, because at the end of the day, it all costs, right? So we are really trying to streamline our whole cost base through the use of AI, wherever we have the right data. As I said in my keynote before, the issue I think we're all facing in large corporations, I'm sure my colleagues will confirm that, is that we first have to build a robust data infrastructure. People think you can just deploy AI, because with all these great algorithms and LLMs and whatever, that's not the point. The point first, you need to have a robust and thought through data architecture and infrastructure, which obviously has also the right data governance, the right ethical and legal standards, observed. And then I think based on this, you can then really deploy larger implementations of AI. And this is actually what we're working on since about 2-3 years to really get that infrastructure in place.
Right. Thank you very much. I mean, I suppose building on that point, and if we're talking about the sort of geopolitical issues that are of our age, we did also touch on the fact that sort of EU and Western populations are aging, and how can AI analysis of aging populations sort of assist the prevention of chronic diseases that we see that are inevitably going to be something that become increasingly prevalent in society here and in other parts of the West, including Asia?
Yeah, thank you for this. I think obviously a huge topic, not only for us, but for the overall healthcare systems, right? How do we pay for the aging population, not only from a pension fund perspective, social security, but also obviously from a healthcare perspective? And we are a very strong partner. I mean, we obviously know generics industry supplies 80% of all the medicines to the system, and therefore I think we are very much concerned about the development here and also the impact this will have on the whole healthcare system. Now, coming back to what we obviously can do, I think we can help that there's less of these chronic diseases. Give you one example, the biggest factor is still cardiovascular diseases in terms of death, and therefore, I mean, what is the biggest problem there? It's not that you see that somebody has a high blood pressure, but the problem is that after 14, 15 months in every country in Central Eastern Europe, people are stopped taking their medication as indicated by the doctor. So compliance is one of the key factors which we're having. Now the question is, how could we use AI or tools around AI to increase this compliance for the patient? And this is something we're working on. Obviously there is a lot you can do on education of the doctors, of the patient, but I think there has to be more, right? We're talking about apps which basically are recognizing somehow that that the person has not said I took my tablet, then there is feedback to the doctor, then basically on a certain pattern the doctor can then escalate it and intervene. I think there's all these ideas behind it, and this compliance now on this small example of cardiovascular, it's really an issue. I think on the whole diabetes, another of the big issues which we're having, also there, we're trying to get new medication to patients, drug combinations which are better for elderly people, because to take one tablet instead of 3 is a comfort. People will stay longer compliant. I think there's a lot we can do there, but these are very simple instruments and not necessarily driven by AI. But I'm saying we're even in those instruments, we're at the beginning, right? But we recognize that we can do a lot more with, patterns of people that we know when we have to remind them, and so forth and so forth. But I think it's really a big area where I think we can all work together to get a better outcome for chronic diseases.
I mean, I think as the CEO of a big pharma company, I suppose when you're talking in terms of the patient compliance, that sort of seems potentially outside of your remit, but very necessary as part of the pharmaceutical industry. Each company has to decide what their AI ability is going to be internally and externally. How do you decide, how would you go about deciding where your scope is and where your scope is not?
Yeah, that's a very good question, thank you. We some years ago, we gave ourselves a new purpose. And our purpose is help people to live a healthy life in a healthy world. So we were not just a company which wants to help sick people, we would actually love to help people stay longer healthy. And this has really shifted the mind of my whole colleagues in our organization to think differently about health, about our products which we're developing, and also, and I'm saying now here this openly, I don't really care if I invest into compliance and all the other pharma companies profit out of it, because it helps the patient. At the end, also myself, because we're the largest company in cardiovascular diseases in terms of product sales, but still it can also help everybody else. So I think you shouldn't stop, in front of your door. I think we as pharmaceutical companies, we also have a moral obligation, an ethical obligation to do more in the interest of the patient. And I think this is also expected and finds very open doors, obviously, by the healthcare system for these initiatives. On the other side, we obviously as a cost-effective company, we invest mostly in effectiveness in terms of in AI. And now also we look into new areas where we can see how we can work with patents. Obviously, innovative companies try to longer and longer protect their innovative drugs, whereas you need to be really smart to be able to produce a generic after the first patent has expired, to be able then to launch really your own product. And there obviously AI is helping us in terms of finding new formulations for products. And these are aspects where we're now investing money to be more competitive.
Terrific, thank you ever so much. I'm going to shift over to Adam now to give us a little bit of perspective on the media and entertainment industry. I think, particularly these days when social media is so prevalent and fake news is sort of part of the zeitgeist, I suppose in a news company with deep fakes and misinformation on the rise in general, how should media companies like your own uphold journalistic integrity in the age of AI?
Okay, before I answer that question, I will try to make it a bit complicated, because to give you a perspective, a couple of years ago when I started working with digital, I thought that my job was to actually get myself out of the job. So, because if a company has a division that is called digital, it means that the rest of it is not. So I thought that, in a couple of years, I will be out of the job, because we're going to spread out the digital, whatever it is, throughout the company, the competence, the skills, the tools. And whenever I was almost there, something else was popping up. So I remember I started with data centers, then we moved into, cloud, then we moved into machine learning and models, and now we're with AI. So it seems like, it's an ongoing process that never ends. But yeah, I mean, in media, I think there are two parts, or even three parts to answer that. The first is that these two words, the traditional linear TV and media, is kind of changing, but it's merging together with the online world. And we see it happening, with different speed on the different markets, where the linear TV is kind of, sliding down in terms of the, number of viewers, the time spent. But at the same time, we see the aging of the population, which you already mentioned, and we see that there is a need also to address or attract new viewers with a content that is not only taken from the traditional TV and packed into online, so you just don't move it. You actually do the specially produce the special content for the online and internet. It is not the same content. It's a different categories, but also this. the span of attention is much shorter, so the shorter forms are becoming more and more interesting. So that's one thing. And this is the kind of on the entertainment side of our industry. Then you have the whole discussion which is happening around the data privacy and everything what big tech is doing. And we've been having really a time with no regulation here in Europe, or it was really a vacuum, which created a lot of discussion, a lot of tensions within the countries, member countries, but also between the countries here in European Union, what kind of shape and how rigid our regulation should be to allow us to experiment, because that's what I see more and more becoming, that the approach where you experiment, you build prototypes in the production, the creative production, is becoming more and more important as a way of operating. So that's the second part. And the third part is our responsibility to inform, yes, to be a reliable source of information, especially with a wave of fake news and integrity, which you were mentioning. And this is a big challenge. I mean, TVN was one of the first platforms in Europe that have a platform called Concrete 24. Today we do around 1,000 stories fact-checking per year. And that's done with our journalists, and we actually go deep down into the roots of story that we believe we should explain the context. We believe now that with the new technology, we will be able to do it faster, better, and make a better research. But that's probably becoming more important than ever when you see the numbers where 2/3 of our viewers saying that they've been affected by the fake news in one way or another. And this is a growing issue, and we see the growth of that kind of incidents with around 30 to 35% annually. So it's not going away. It's becoming a huge issue, and also is area of responsibility, how we deal with it, how our governance works in terms of the internal within the journalists, what story do we show, how do we show it, how to present it as well. Our group CEO says that we are a storytelling company when it comes to entertainment, but also we are storytelling in terms of the news. What kind of context, what's important. We are trying to use the technology to actually make suggestions to our viewers what could be interesting for them. So we are using that knowledge, but not to make sure that they feel only targeted and they feel overwhelmed, but also that they feel cared of. So recommendation engines are there to recommend, but not to manipulate. I think it's a slight difference between the recommendation and manipulation. Also, in terms of doing the research and all the AI tools we're using, there is always a human being at the end of the process which is taking a decision. So we are augmenting humans with the knowledge and the new tools, rather than just replacing them. I mean, a couple of years ago, one of the big magazines in a couple of months ago, a big magazine in the US started a campaign where they were showing the journalists with names that behind every story there's a human being. And I think that's important, it's human touch, especially where the reality is becoming more and more complicated, it's subtle. So you need to really serve it in a way that people understand it. But again, not to overwhelm it, but make sure that they really get what they need.
Thanks very much. So as sort of pursuant to what you were saying earlier about building the capabilities within your firm, what sort of capabilities must media organizations put in place to allow them to really thrive within the AI-augmented creative environment? How do you make that actually happen in between you and your journalists, or you and your workers?
I mean, this is all about the governance. What kind of criteria do we have? We created a special function which is about the governance and compliance, which was internally checked. That's a lot, and I think the journalists per se, they've been seeing a huge value of that. We have pretty hectic discussions, which subjects to go, how to check it, how make sure that the story we are showing, it's not only to generate more clicks and more traffic, but there is a genuine story behind it. So I think that's been a discussion. Of course, it goes back, what's the ad-free journalism, yeah, or what is subscription? I think it's another part. How much. I think Netflix did a great job actually convincing people that you have to pay for the good and quality entertainment. I think we are living still in a world that people believe that news should be for free, especially in internet. And that's a problem, because if you want to afford a high-quality journalism, I guess there is no escape from the subscription model, where you actually pay what you want for, and the quality. So this is a choice, but again, we try to combine it. So it's both the ad-free subscriptions, but also ad-supported services, which we believe are very important. So we can afford, spreading the news on a certain level, but then much deeper analysis are done behind the paywall.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Adam. Jan, I'm going to move over to you, if you don't mind. Could you tell us a little bit about PZU's approach in the insurance industry and how you guys are onboarding AI? I also would like you to build on Adam's interventions on fake news, because as I understand it from our conversations, there's this issue with deep fakes and synthetic claims being made in the insurance industry, and how are you guys going about combating those?
So maybe just as an introduction, maybe for the guests from abroad about the brand. So PZU is a company which insured like nearly 40% of the Polish population. It's by far the market leader in Poland and in CE. And among 14 million customers that we insure, there are some, and there's like 4 million a year which have some issue with their life, with their car, with their home, or with their company. And obviously, as you can imagine, this is the problem which is probably as old as the industry, insurance industry itself. There are some black sheeps among those, 4 million cases that we need to process every year, because simply some customers are trying simply to extend their understanding of the general terms and conditions, and some of them are simply trying to cheat and we experience frauds. And here, to be very honest, artificial intelligence now, but previously we've been developing for a couple of years now big data, in which we analyze different sets of unstructured data. Then we started to implement machine learning methods, now supported also by AI. This is where actually this technology is extremely helpful to completely re-engineer the way we are dealing with high volume processes, like we have at PZU with claims handling. You ask also about, let's say, deep fakes, etc. So yeah, we do see that a lot. So with this 4 million claims, we also receive on an annual basis 12 million of digital images of different documents, images of damaged cars, homes, etc. And as you can imagine, even before deepfake tools became available to simply everybody, we've already been seeing, let's say, some attempts to simply cheat and make an impression that actually something got damaged while it didn't. So indeed, we are already in a process. We are having proof of concept of tools which are helping us to detect this and flag these suspicious cases. And why this is really helpful is that in this, millions of documents we receive on an annual basis with the help of these tools, it can go down to tens of thousands of cases which are flagged as potentially suspicious, as potentially being altered by somebody. And our specialists would deal with that kind of cases, then are able to go case by case, which wouldn't be at all possible if not the help of the AI, because simply we would need to hire an army of people in our operations in order to review file by file. Here now the task is much simpler, because this is down to a couple of thousand. So here in this area, this AI is really a practical, one of the probably most practical examples in which we experience significant amount of claims which were not paid because simply there were frauds or there were other kind of manipulations.
Terrific, thanks ever so much. We also had the opportunity to speak about earlier about how AI is being used to automate underwriting, specifically sort of using satellite images, drones, wearable health items like Apple Watches and so on and so forth. Could you tell us a little bit about how that's being augmented in your industry?
Yeah, sure. So maybe again for the audience to kind of be on the same page. So in underwriting, what we are trying to do is we are trying to determine and answer the question if we as an insurer, want to provide cover for the asset, for the good, for the car, for the home, or for the life of the customer, right? So by asking questions, by trying to understand what's the situation, we are trying to estimate the premium and the probability of the claim. And here, again, the AI and machine learning is really useful as it helps us in two aspects. One is speed, and second is accuracy. How it helps us in speed is, as you can imagine, underwriting, being a physical person often still, is trying to get information from different sources and really conduct the risk analysis. Given this information is coming from paper, from different systems, from web, from some databases that he's using, this is a complex and really cumbersome process often. So in terms of time to quote, that we need to come back to the customer with the quote, this is actually where it's really useful. We are currently undergoing a proof of concept in which the brokers, which represent our corporate customers, are sending us thick RFPs, having dozens of pages. Each one of them is in different format. They are having different information in different pages, and we are using a tool, an AI tool, which is simply extracting the information that the underwriter needs, so that she can focus on the value-added activities which is related to underwriting. And how it helps us in accuracy, and this was mentioned by Dominic. Actually, we use satellite imaging. One of the really big businesses for PZU is insuring crops, is providing insurance cover for the farmers in Poland. And what is important to us in the underwriting is to determine quickly in which condition is the crop that he is trying to insure, in which shape is that, what is the density of particular plants. And with the help of satellite imaging, we can actually instantly provide an answer if we are able to provide cover or not, something which historically would be either very lengthy, we would need to send somebody to check on site what's the situation, that would take at least days, if not 2 weeks. And with the current capabilities, we are able to simply give the quote to the customer within hours, right? So this is tremendously changing the customer experience, changing the perception of customers, how we can really leverage the tools that we have.
Thank you ever so much. So now we're drawing towards the last 10 minutes of the conversation. I want to open it up a little bit so that we can have a proper discussion going. And since we're talking about the strategies of the future of AI, and we are but in the foothills of it at the moment, I'd like to speak about a little bit how you're looking to develop your capabilities going forward. Are these, is AI something that you guys are developing in-house? What partnerships might you be participating in? Is it with startups, academia, or government? How are you bringing these sort of valuable elements into your AI innovation strategy? So I'd like to open it up to the floor.
Okay, I can start. I mean, what we are trying to do is to build a whole entire ecosystem which comprises of both the internal resources and the external, very selected companies like 11 Labs. I guess, there are more and more companies working like that, working with the companies of that magnitude, that innovation in their thinking. But my ultimate goal, I was having a conversation with our management team a couple of weeks ago. I said, but my goal this time around, in digital transformation, would be for every main working group in our company to have enough competence and tools to be able to have their own AI agent helping them to solve their everyday issues. So if I could have a KPI that tells me that by the, sometime by the end of 2026, if I could have the major divisions in my organization, each of the team leaders having the ability to have the AI agents supporting them on their daily work, and it's regardless whether it's the journalist team or is a team working in a back office or the product development, that they have that capability, that I think that we actually achieved what we wanted in terms of the competence and capabilities. And then how we use it, of course, that's another question in terms of our code of conduct, our reliability, our mission, and so forth. And this is one thing. And the second thing is that I'll see more and more parallels with the IT developments and the methodologies, the agile methodology. I was mentioning to some of you before this panel that what's coming new in the movie, even the filming of the new movies, is that you go into the agile prototyping. So it's actually you get the screens, some scripts, and then you based from that, you actually produce an AI movie. AI is producing a prototype movie, which you are test showing to the limited number of audience. You get the feedback, and once it's ready, your model is helping you to get the budget, and then you start actual filming, which never happened before. So the whole thing, the whole approach of prototyping and MVP, which is comes very much from the technology IT rollouts initially, you see that coming thanks to the tools like AI-driven ability to shoot a movie or to create a movie in an eye before you actually shoot a movie with your real actors in the physical locations. Although the physical locations are also changing because you have having the benefit of XR studios more and more. So, but that's the whole idea, yes, to make all this preparation, all this prototyping shorter, faster, and more accurate.
Markus, thank you very much. Markus, I presume that also with you in terms of the pharma industry, there must be some sort of a level of cooperation with government in terms of trying to build this forward, or is this something that you've come across?
Not in relation of the government, I would say. I think, I really believe in my teams, in my employees, and I think first and foremost, I think I have 5,500 people which are innovative. I think what really foster innovation with our innovation programs and education of all my employees, it's key for me. So I mean, one of the training KPIs we have is that we need an AI-savvy workforce. Second point, I think and then we have our innovation platforms. And thirdly, I think we need an agile setup. I'm not sure if you know why incubator, but they have just reported that the top 20 startups they have, for all of them, 95% of the code was written by AI. So if you today do a startup, you only need 5% of the coding, capabilities than you needed before. Which means if what I would actually drive to for innovation, I would go into an agile setup where I combine, working together with universities, working together with external companies. Right now we have an approach where we say, okay, have you done it before in 1 or 2 implementations? We buy it. So we're not innovating new, we just take what has worked in other companies and we early adopt that because that makes sense for us, but because it's a proven model. And the risk is already reduced to a certain extent in terms of what the outcome will be. But I think moving forward, I think we'll look at the very agile setup where you put together, as this Y incubator is showing, the actual technical capabilities, especially on how we develop new solutions. It's reducing. At the end, you will need 1% of coding capabilities, basically asking the right questions, I suppose. And then you have the system ready, right? So it's more about that have to understand what problem you really want to solve and what is the innovative idea, how you want to solve it. I think that for me is actually, and then obviously we will work with everybody, which makes sense.
Thank you very much. I think we've got time for one last part of the conversation. So, I mean, you may well have...
also add, I would be really feeling bad.
By all means,
given
please,
it's a global startup workshop, it would be really a pity not to say, as PZU, we are actually doing a lot in the space of cooperation with startups. So what we do since 7 years, since 2017, we kicked off a program called PZU Ready for Startups, in which we combined over this 7-8 years period, we reviewed like 7,000 different, companies' ideas that were, let's say, approaching or we were actively scouting. Out of which we decided for proof of concept for 77 out of those 7,000, and 49 is really on production as part of PZU operating model currently. So we have number of years of experience in this kind of structured approach to cooperation with startups. And in the area and the team which I have a pleasure to work with, we do not invest, not this part which I'm foreseeing is not investing, but we try to help them to first test their their business model with the largest player in the region. We help them to scale up their business if it's really flying, so they can really, you know, with our help to really span the wings and really kick off. And we have examples of, you know, startups from London, which, you know, where we were one of the first customers, and they are now global company. So we have a lot of experience in that, and we are encouraging, and I'm also encouraging, if you do anything around, you know, customer-facing processes and how AI is helping to do customer service, how is simply you can help, you know, with processing documents, how you can help in analysis of data for pricing. We are more than happy to see you. We have a structured process. This is also a structured process for innovation in PZU, because despite we have talented people called actuaries, which deal with data on a daily basis, we are also more than open to cooperate with talented people from young startups.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much. I think we're coming up to time. I did want to just ask one question since we're on the main stage here. There's a recent article in the FT that said only 2% of workforces today are currently using AI, maybe even less. Maybe one of you could explain to us how you plan to embed a culture of learning and experimentation when it comes to AI within your companies to get that number up from 2% to the maximum.
I have a very fresh experience because actually next week we are launching company-wide, so for 10,000 employees, we're going to deploy one of the Gen AI tools provided by one global software company that we've been testing this. So what we've been doing in the past couple of months, we were testing, we chosen thousands of employees, and we try to find ambassadors to show to the others how you can use it in your daily work, and with the powerful use cases that will be now showing to all the staff of the company, with board members showing how they can how it helps them in their daily work. We will be trying to, based on these ambassadors, based on this actual, you know, cases that we've been seeing in the proof of concept. We'll be trying to spread it across the company, but it will take a lot of effort and some time probably to really build the culture that, yes, it can really vastly change the way you're doing your daily routine if you use what AI assistant can do for you.
And if I may give the final word to the only educator on our panel, would you mind?
Well, I'm learning a lot from this panel here, and I think one of the key messages for the audience to take away is that innovation, adopting technologies for a changing world like AI, is not just something that happens with entrepreneurial startups. It's clearly happening in these large corporations and in Poland. So AI is not a Silicon Valley monopoly. It's really important that places around the world adopt AI in ways that are appropriate for their industry, whether it's insurance, media, or pharma, but also in line with local cultural norms. And I think we as Europeans have slightly different approaches. And I also was really struck that these the leaders of these large corporations are also interested in working with startups. So you could come join an innovative corporation, or maybe your startup could work with one of these. These are good innovation ecosystem practices, and I think speaks to the strengths of what we see here in the Warsaw innovation ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today. Thank you ever so much for coming. Please would you give a round of applause to our guests. Thank you so much.